In 1814, a Japanese printmaker in his 50s published a book of drawings. It was not a story. It had no plot, no characters who come back, and nothing on any page that leads to the next page. It was a book of studies, travelers under broad hats, a man climbing a rope, birds landing, dozens of small figures to a sheet, drawn the way a carpenter keeps a box of offcuts, so that a shape you need is already there when you need it. The printmaker was Katsushika Hokusai, who is now best known outside Japan for a single wave. He lived from 1760 to 1849, and he drew for about 70 of those years. The book sold, so there was a second volume, and then more. It ran to 15 volumes in the end, holding roughly 4,000 drawings, and the last of them came out long after Hokusai himself was dead. The title he put on the cover was two characters. The first one, man, means whimsical or impromptu, or done without a plan. The second one, ga, simply means pictures, rambling pictures, sketches at random. Those two characters, in that order, are the word you use today for a form that is almost entirely about plan. Serialist narrative, recurring cast, one panel deliberately leading into the next. So the word arrives attached to the opposite of what it now names, which raises three questions worth 200 years of answering. Where did it actually come from? When did it change? And does anything older than Hokusai have a better claim? The first thing to get out of the way is that Hokusai did not invent the word. He is simply the reason you have heard it, which is a different thing and a much more common one. The word was already in use in the late 1700s. The picture book usually named as the earliest is Santo Kaiden's Shurji no Yukikai, published in 1798, 16 years before Hokusai's first volume appeared. And in the very same year as Hokusai, 1814, another artist called Eikawa Minwa published a book with the word in its title as well. So this was not one man's coinage. It was a term of art that several publishers were reaching for at once. What it meant to all of them was the same. Drawings made loosely and gathered without a scheme. The word described a manner of drawing, not a kind of storytelling, and for about a century after Hokusai, it went on meaning that. Which is worth saying plainly, because the popular version of the story has Hokusai naming the art form. He did not. He named a sketchbook, and the sketchbook was so widely copied that his title outlived his meaning. That leaves the second question. If the word did not become modern in 1814, when did it, and who moved it? That answer has a name and a date, and we will get to it. But there's a louder claim to deal with first, and you have almost certainly met it, that the real beginning is 900 years old, and it is a set of painted scrolls with animals in them. Before we test the older claim, it is worth knowing what the Hokusai volumes actually contain, because most people who repeat this story have never opened one, and the contents settle several arguments at once. A great deal of it is reference. Pages of animals, 20 or 30 to a sheet. Pages of birds in the air and at rest. Pages of plants, tools, buildings, and waves. It is closer to a visual dictionary than to a portfolio. A great deal more of it is motion. Wrestlers taken hold by hold. Acrobats caught at the point of balance. The same body drawn several times across one sheet in successive positions, which is a thing you do when you're studying how movement works. And there are expressions. One famous spread is a grid of faces, row after row, each one a different mood, laid out for comparison. Anyone who has seen a modern character reference sheet will recognize the layout immediately. That resemblance is real, and it is also the trap. A grid of faces on one page is not a story. It is a lookup table. The similarity is in the working method of a draftsman, not in the grammar of a narrative. There is comedy in there too, and it is broad. People with baskets stuck over their heads. A gust of wind taking every hat and every loose sheet of paper in one direction at once, which is one of the most reproduced images in Japanese art. So the honest summary is that the Hokusai Manga is a working manual with jokes in it. Enormously influential, endlessly copied, and not a comic. Now we can look at the scrolls. The scrolls are called the Choju-jinbutsu-giga, which translates roughly as caricatures of animals and people. They belong to Kozenji, a temple in the hills northwest of Kyoto, and they're a national treasure of Japan. The oldest of them is dated to the 12th century, which puts it around 600 years before Hokusai and roughly 900 years before you. And what is on it is rabbits, monkeys, and frogs behaving exactly like people. They swim, they wrestle, and the frog throws the rabbit. They hold a funeral. They shoot at a target. A monkey in a priest's robe reads a service while the congregation, who are also animals, sit and listen. The case for calling this the first manga rests on 3 real observations, and they deserve to be stated at full strength before anything is done to them. First, it is drawn in ink line alone, with no color, and the line is fast and confident in a way that looks startlingly modern. Second, it is funny on purpose. Third, and most important, you read it by unrolling, so the scenes arrive in a fixed order. That third point is the strong one. A fixed order is the beginning of sequence, and sequence is what separates a picture from a comic. On this scroll, the wrestling really does happen after the swimming. So the claim is not silly. It is a real observation about a real object. The trouble is what gets built on top of it, and that is where this story goes wrong twice. The first mistake is the artist. For centuries, the scrolls have been attributed to a priest called Toba Sojo, who died in 1140. You will still find that attribution printed under the pictures in old encyclopedias. Specialists no longer accept it. There is no contemporary evidence tying him to the work. The scrolls are not consistent enough in hand to be one person, and the attribution appears to have been attached long after the fact and then simply repeated. The second mistake is bigger. People talk about the Choju-jinbutsu-giga as though it were one object. It is 4 scrolls. They are not all of the same date, and the later ones are not even doing the same thing. The famous one, the one with the frogs and the rabbits, is the first. Another is a careful study of real animals rather than a caricature of them. So the sequence that makes the strongest argument is one scroll's property, not the set's. And there's a third problem that is nobody's mistake, just a gap. Between the 12th century scrolls and the 1800s, there is no chain of descent anyone can show. Later artists imitated them, which proves they were admired, not that they were inherited. Imitation is easy to mistake for lineage because it looks the same from a distance. A painting made centuries afterwards in the style of the scrolls tells you what a later artist liked. It does not tell you that anything was handed down. So the honest verdict on the 900-year claim is split. The object is real, the sequence is real, and the ancestry is not demonstrated, which leaves the actual answer to when the word changed, and it is much closer to us than either date so far. The man who moved the word has a name, and it is not a name most people who use the word have heard. Rakuten Kitazawa, born in 1876, died in 1955. Kitazawa was a cartoonist, working when Japanese publishing was absorbing the Western illustrated satire magazine, with its captions, its recurring figures, and its strips of panels running in order across a page. He took the old word, manga, and applied it to that. Not to lose studies in a sketchbook, but to draw on comedy with a sequence and a punchline. It is his usage, and not Hokusai's, that you are using when you say the word today. In 1905, he founded a magazine of his own, in full color, which is why a cover from 1909 looks so unlike anything else in this film. It is printed, it is commercial, and it is aimed at a weekly audience. So the timeline that actually holds up is this. The word exists by 1798. Hokusai makes it famous in 1814 while meaning something else by it, and it acquires its modern sense around 1900 in a magazine office. The scrolls are still worth everything they are given credit for. They are 900 years old, they are funny, and they read in order. They are simply not the parent of the word, and treating a resemblance as a bloodline is the commonest mistake in the history of anything, which is the part worth taking away. When somebody tells you an art form began in one place at one moment, the useful question is never whether the old thing looks like the new thing. It is whether anyone can show you the line between them.